I'm used to the climate, a thing that if man ever found a place to live easy and happy, that Eden is on Puget Sound. Eden is on Puget Sound. That Eden is on Puget Sound. A place to live easy and happy. That Eden is on Puget Sound.
Hello, you are listening to the Seattle Files. My name is Chris Allen, I'm your host. On each episode of this show, I get together with a different local comedian, and together we discuss the strange, unusual, interesting, and oftentimes lesser-known aspects of our local history. Joining me today on the program is Ben Lidgus. How's it going, Ben?
It's going great. You know, Chris, someday I hope to be a friend of the show, so I don't know what you have to do to earn that title.
I think you currently are a friend of the show.
Wow!
Just by being here.
Well, you throw that dog biscuit out really easily then.
It's not the most savory biscuit. It's just, it's a pretty standard biscuit.
All right, I'm going to elevate the standard of the biscuit.
Okay. I've already lost, but great. Ben is an ensemble member in Comedy Sports Seattle, which performs every weekend in Fremont. And he's also a former high school teacher and current tutor. What did you teach?
AP Physics, regular physics, Algebra 1 credit retrieval, and...
What is credit retrieval?
So if you are taking Algebra 1,
okay,
and you're doing real bad, such that you fail the first semester of it,
yeah, in
the second semester you can give up an elective to retake it and not, get off pace. So for the where I was, if you really clasped your hands together and signed some agreements and showed I'm back on track now, they would give you the privilege of retaking this first semester concurrent with the second semester, which was a real bad time for most of those kids.
That is interesting because that happened to me, that exact scenario. In high school, I was a pretty good student for most of high school, but I failed Algebra 1 because I had... a lot of problems. And so I ended up failing Algebra 1. I retook it in the first semester of Algebra 1. I got a perfect score in the class, and then I got a perfect score the second time, but I was just, yeah. But yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that.
It's designed for people like that, and I don't know if any of the people passed it when I taught it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There were, the class that I took, there was a good mix of people in it that failed for various reasons in the first, yeah. Cool. Good on you. AP Physics, though, so you know physics good, then. Yeah,
it's funny how much of it fades, but yeah, I know a lot of physics. Cool. We can talk torque later if you want.
I'm more into newtons myself, but
newtons?
Yeah,
that's a fine force unit.
Oh yeah, it's great. Kilonewtons are when I take a fall, I want to measure that in kilonewtons.
Well, it makes sense because the force of a newton is something about if you take an apple and turn it into applesauce and spread it out over a square meter. A newton is a very, very gentle amount of force.
Yeah, that's why I like it.
And so I am, assuming you're going to fill my head with knowledge, I'm going to push back with a very gentle force.
Okay, sounds good. How long have you lived in the Seattle area?
For 37 years.
Okay,
my entire life.
Your entire life. What neighborhood are you from, or what area?
I grew up in Redmond, and then on the east side, and then I moved to the UW to go to school. So then it's sort of a mix of U District, Capitol Hill. Now I'm in Columbia City.
Excellent.
As I ride the wave of high rents.
And getting pushed out.
Yes.
Slowly but surely, like a kilonewton.
a
gentle force nudging you outside of the city.
I think if it was a kilonewton, well, actually, yeah. I would say, yeah, it's not so gentle. It's more like a kilonewton.
Okay.
Pushing people out.
Fair enough. I remember I was climbing and I had somebody explain to me, because all the gear is tested in terms of kilonewtons and of force, and somebody explained to me what it was, and it just right over my head.
Well, it's just like a pound. There's 10 newtons or something in a pound.
But it's if you have a pound and you gently set it down versus if you have a pound and drop it from a foot and there's suspended by a rope. If you just dangle a 10-pound weight from a rope versus if you drop the 10-pound weight and allow the rope to absorb.
So that would be dealing with a slightly different thing called impulse.
Isn't that what a newton is, though? A measurement of force like that? And how the strength of... See, I told you I did not know what
Newton
this
is a
was.
measurement of force, but like as you can imagine, like as something falls longer, it moves faster, and then to stop it in like a quarter inch,
Okay.
the heavier and the faster it moves, harder it is going to be to stop, and a rope is going to stop any object, I'm going to guess, in about an inch.
Okay.
And so that distance that it stops is important, because if you say we're able to, if it was on the end of a large rubber band and it stopped over like 100 feet, it would be no big deal. You wouldn't feel a jolt. You just go, boom.
So you would slow down and then speed back up.
And that's impulse.
Okay, yeah.
How fast or slow you slow something down.
Let's say that's pretty much what I thought it was.
All right.
Just for the sake of argument. How much do you know about local history?
I would say probably more than the average person.
So you're from the area. Did you have to take the Pacific Northwest history classes or class in school?
For 1 quarter at Evergreen Junior High, I took Washington State history, and it was like the 3rd quarter of the year. And I don't remember my teacher, but he was awesome. On the first day of the 3rd quarter, he handed out a map of Washington, and we were supposed to fill out all the counties. And he was like, "We'll get to that tomorrow." And then nothing was mentioned about Washington State history for the rest of the year, and I got credit for it.
What did you do for the rest of the year then?
It was just social studies. Like we studied like religions and wars and stuff like that.
But not related to Washington itself?
Not a bit.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Sounds to me like they were derelict in their duties as a Washington State history teacher.
Well, I think they knew that I would someday know Chris Allen.
Okay, and that would all it would all balance out. And you have no idea what we're going to be talking about today, correct?
Correct.
Excellent. Let's go ahead and get started. July 4th, 1854. At a 4th of July picnic, homesteader Thomas Mercer gave a speech in which he renamed the large lake to the east of his land claim Lake Washington, which had previously been known by the natives as hyas, which is lashotseed for big waters, and known to settlers as either Lake Geneva or Lake Duwamish.
By what authority did he claim the right to rename this?
He said, "I am a white settler, and therefore I am going to name this."
But there are other white settlers that could have done something similar.
He is one of the first about 50 people to arrive here. So Thomas Mercer's land claim, the southern border of his land claim was Mercer Street. So basically, you could just come out here, claim a big chunk of land for yourself. After 1852, mid-1850s, the Donation Land Claim Act, because this had just become a part of the United States, said if you are an American citizen, a single man, at least 50% white, you can claim 320 acres of land in the newly formed Oregon Territory.
Damn.
Yeah, as long as you lived on it for 7 years and built on it. If you are a married couple, you can get 640 acres of land, which is a square mile, if you lived on it for 7 years and built on it.
Damn.
Yeah. So he did that. He came out here with his wife, but his wife died on the Oregon Trail.
How was his relationship with the local folks, the natives?
The natives, it was, not great. It was fine in the 1850s. The first wave of settlers were greeted pretty friendly by the indigenous people, and then it got real bad real quick. By 1854, this is just before the treaty wars started. I believe it was January 22nd, 1855 is when the Point Elliott Treaty was signed, which surrendered 2 million acres of land from the native tribes to the United States government. And that led to a long series of armed conflicts.
Do you think when the local Native Americans traveled to trade over the mountains?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That there's
more to that. Do you think they traveled to trade? Yes, man.
When they would go to Yakima or Walla Walla, and they would trade and whatever, and they'd come back. That the Native Americans in Yakima would be like, man, those ones from over the mountains, they're real downers. You think they had seasonal affective disorder? The
tribes, they traded with each other, but they also went to war with each other. Some of the tribes considered other tribes to be less than human. Mm-hmm. They would take each other as slaves. Mm-hmm. So I think saying those guys are a downer might be one of the best relations between some of the tribes you could have hoped for. But I can't comment on seasonal affective disorder amongst the Duwamish people. I'm unaware of that. So, Thomas Mercer also christened the body of water that lay between Lake Washington and Puget Sound, Lake Union, and put forth the idea that someday the lake would serve as a conduit to connect Lake Washington to Puget Sound, so that large vessels could use the tranquil Lake Washington as a port. And he suggested building canals to connect them, to connect Puget Sound to Lake Union to Lake Washington. Lake Union was already connected to Puget Sound via Salmon Bay and a tiny waterway called Ross Creek. There was a path between Lake Washington and Lake Union that natives had used for centuries as a portage spot, where they would move their canoes from one lake to the other.
Was it a bike path? Was it the I-90 bike path?
It was not a bike path. The Burke-Gilman Trail is a few years off, but it was just a portage spot, a little foot-worn trail where they would take their water vessels from Lake Washington to Lake Union and back. The plan, if executed, could be greatly beneficial to the new settlement of Seattle. A freshwater harbor would mean ships would not be susceptible to shipworms, which can only live in salt water. The lake didn't experience tides, because it's a lake, and the calm waters would make it easy to load and unload the vessels.
I had a ship that we had to put down because it had shipworms.
Oh, that's too bad. Shipworms.
Oh, sorry.
Shipworms. Shipworms.
Shipworms.
Yeah, exactly.
Shipworms.
I'm sorry for the loss of your ship, though. That's, yeah. Not shitworms, shipworms. The first attempt at building such a canal was undertaken by Harvey L. Pike, son of John Pike, for whom Pike Street and Pike Place Market is named. In 1861, 19-year-old Harvey Pike purchased a piece of land for $242.75 on the promise to clear it in the area between the westernmost part of Lake Washington and the easternmost part of Lake Union. So, right where the Mountain Lake Cut is today. Essentially. He immediately set about, by himself, digging a canal using nothing more than a shovel, a pick, and a wheelbarrow. He's an industrious young man.
So if was he successful in this endeavor?
Not really.
Okay. How long is the Mountain Lake Cut?
2,200 feet.
So what kind of ship did he want to get through there?
He just wanted to build. It's unclear what his end goal was. It was probably more to allow timber to float through, and then you could bring timber from one lake to the other, and then float it down Ross Creek and out into the Sound. But I don't know what his actual stated goal was. He just wanted to connect the two lakes.
It's probably just working out his anger.
Yeah, exactly. He'd be like, my dad got a street named after him, and I bet they're going to name a sweet market after him later, and
screw that guy. I'm going to not live under his thumb for the rest of my life.
I'm going to go out to the country, a.k.a. Mount Lake. Yeah. A report by James M. Clapp of the Army Corps of Engineers would later write that he succeeded in connecting the two lakes with a 6-foot-wide ditch where, quote, the ditch took more the form of a small creek, the amount of water flowing through it depending on the level of the water surface of Lake Washington. Though he did not succeed in building a navigable route for ships, he did help establish the Lake Washington Canal Company with the intention of finishing the canal.
I think that's probably his friends, having mercy on him.
Oh, come on, Harvey. You did a great job. Let's
finish this bugger off for you.
Yeah. Well, he ended up becoming an inventor. I didn't have this in write this in my notes, but he ended up becoming an inventor and actually doing pretty well for himself. So, yeah, I guess he worked out that anger. Anger towards old dad. Put that anger in the form of a canal, young people listening. At the same time, the U.S. government was scouting locations to build a naval base and explored the idea of connecting the lakes for that purpose, so making Lake Washington the naval base and then having canals to go through, but concluded that the small settlement with only 1,500 people living in it wasn't a good fit. Yeah. Too small. Too small for a naval base.
I wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't either, yeah. Good call, U.S. government. In 1882, landowners decided to fund a venture to build a canal system. They hired Chinese laborers to widen Ross Creek and dig a canal between Lake Union and Lake Washington. They also built a small lock system due to the fact that Lake Washington was 29 feet above sea level, much higher than Lake Union. Lake Union rested 20 feet above sea level.
This seems like a really big deal to them.
Sorry?
This seems like a really big deal to them.
It is, it could be incredibly financially beneficial if they have this giant Lake Washington to use as a harbor for ships. It could really, really change the course of the city's history if they're successful in doing this.
Do we because we have a lock system and a canal now.
We do.
But it's not a huge thing.
I believe it was 1929, Aurora Bridge was built, which was too low to allow three-masted sailing ships to enter and exit through. So it became less of a big deal as time went on. The big thing here is they don't really have steamships yet, I'm not sure if they have them at all, but they're not prevalent. So they need ships with giant masts to be able to come in and out.
How do you sail, in a narrow canal?
Very carefully. It can be done, and it is done.
You need a ship without shipworms.
You do need a ship without shipworms,
and a captain without captain worms.
I'm guessing you and I would not be able to do it successfully. So, an experienced sailor, though, could probably navigate through.
What if they had two sort of, dudes that were kind of quirky and quick on their feet and could play What Are You Doing? Really quick. Do you think that would get the ships through the canals?
If we did improv games on the deck of the ship?
Yeah! We're good at something. We're hardy.
There's only one way to find out, isn't there?
Time travel adventure movie?
Let's do it! Sweet. By the way, I have a bone to pick with a statue at Seattle Center.
What?
Because
is it the pig?
It's not. Oh no, it's not the pig. That's a Pike Place Market.
Is it the big red one that all the cylinders are?
No, that's pretty cool.
Is it the Space Needle?
It's not the Space Needle.
Is it a fountain?
It is a fountain.
What?
Yes.
You have a bone to pick with the fountain?
Well, not that fountain. Not the big fountain.
There's another fountain?
There's another smaller fountain.
Is it a water fountain for drinking out of?
No, it's not. I didn't intend this as a guessing game, but I guess we're in it now.
Is it? Okay. Do you know those big, when you go to see the IMAX, they have those big white things.
It's not.
Do those have water in them?
No, it's not that, but you're closer.
Is it an orca? You know how they have that play area, and there's those fake orcas in the science center.
Yes.
Is it one of those?
Yes.
Those emit water?
It's not the one. It's not in the Science Center. It's between the Children's Theater, Seattle Children's Theater, and the Science Center.
Is it one of those guns that kids can use to shoot?
You're getting farther away.
Right. It's an orca.
It's an orca. Yeah,
right.
It's the orca.
Count that as a success.
Success. You nailed it. Yeah, you got there. It's the so there's an orca tail coming out, and the orca tail drips water like it's an orca that is coming out. But around the base, it says, "In the days of Chief Seattle, orcas swimmed into Lake Union." And they did not, because they couldn't have. It's a freshwater lake that's 20 feet above sea level. It's written around the edge of the fountain. On the ground, around the edge of the fountain.
But, so we don't know who authored those words?
I do not know who authored those words.
Scoundrel?
But I'm gonna find out.
You know what we need to do?
Sleuthing?
Time travel adventure movie!
Hey! So that's my bone to pick with that fountain there. There's a lot of things like that around town that I'm like, ooh, that's not accurate. So anyway, Ross Creek connected Lake Union, but it was a creek that flowed down out of Lake Union and out into Salmon Bay, which was a saltwater tidal inlet. But yeah, whales wouldn't have been able to swim up that. That's absurd.
That's absurd.
Anyway, that's my bone to pick.
I think there should be a call to action.
Okay, all right.
A call to citizen vandalism.
Okay. Oh, no. Citizen vandalism. Ben Lidgus does not speak for the Seattle Files.
I speak for the authority of Ben Lidgus.
Ben Lidgus is. I retract my friend of the show status from earlier. I retract that. Do not listen to. Do not vandalize. Don't do it. Don't do it. Anyway. Back to the canal problem.
Unless you're awesome.
No. Awesome people don't vandalize. Don't vandalize the fountain. Don't listen to Ben. He knows physics, but he does not know civic responsibility. So he doesn't know anything about Washington State history. He got a map with the counties on it, and then nothing from there on out. All right. Okay. So the canal system that was built between Lake Washington, Lake Union, and Puget Sound it was a very small lock system. So they could able to float logs through, maybe some small vessels, but not larger vessels. So it was not big enough to turn Lake Washington into a port.
Not orca whales.
Not orca whale. Well, maybe you could get an orca whale through there that way, but
it would have to be well trained.
It would have, yes, yeah. It would have to be one of those unhappy SeaWorld orca whales.
With the floppy fin on the top.
Oh, so sad. Yeah.
Free Willy.
In 1892, Congress published a report which investigated 5 different routes for a possible canal, but didn't provide funding. Territorial Governor Eugene Semple proposed cutting a canal directly from Lake Washington to Elliott Bay by digging through Beacon Hill.
Lake Washington Bay, digging through Beacon Hill.
Does that sound like a good idea or a bad idea to you?
It sounds like there'd be way more dirt to move.
Yes, you are correct in that. You are.
What do you think his reasoning was?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if he. It was. So he incorporated a company. In 1894. He incorporated the Lake Washington Waterway Company to complete his goal. Did they have fights with the Lake Washington Canal Company?
I
think it was a different, we want the money. There was already a plan to do it through there, so he said, let's do it through here, and we'll do it through our own company, so we can make money doing it. Yeah. Is that...
When you're a Lake Washington Canal Company, you're a Lake Washington Canal Company all the way, from your first cigarette to your last dying day.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a real Lake Washington Canal Company and Lake Washington Waterway Company situation. Classic. Eugene Semple also proposed filling in the tide flats of the Duwamish River, right by where the stadiums are today. At high tide, those flats were covered in about 10 to 15 feet of water. So filling in the tide flats went first, and on July 29th, 1895, Semple's daughter Zoe ceremoniously lifted a lever which started the dredger Anaconda to pump mud out of the tide flats, and the mud went through a pipe and was ejected behind a barrier right where Safeco Field is today.
What's a dredger?
A dredger? They would have sucked the mud out and gotten all the mud out. You know, like dredging the bottom of a lake or dredging a...
I've heard those words. I assume it's removing something, but is it like a vacuum?
It's like, this would have been like a vacuum.
Or like a rototiller.
It would have been, basically, I think dredging is along the lines of, using, a rake, like a giant rake along the bottom of a lake or a bottom of a body of water. And this would have been something like that, but it was more of like a pump in order to get mud out so that they could fill it in with nice, hard, compact dirt, build a seawall. The Duwamish River used to be like a really windy river, and they straightened it out. They filled in all that land, which was covered in 10 to 15 feet in water, and now it's where the stadiums are.
I imagine the Duwamish people were super not turned on by that.
Well, they'd already been pushed out of the land at this point. It was illegal. I don't know. I don't think it had been retracted by 1905, but I'm not positive. Or 1895. Yeah, it almost certainly hadn't been. It was illegal for natives to live within the city limits. It was illegal for them to enter after sundown. It was real bad. Chief Seattle was not allowed to live in the city that was named after him.
Wow.
Yeah.
When did Chief Seattle die?
1860s, I want to say. 1870s? I don't remember the exact date. If you want to learn more about that, there's a whole episode about Chief Seattle, but I don't remember when he died exactly.
Did he, turn into, a life of activism, I would imagine?
He, a little bit, but he was viewed he was viewed as a friend of the whites, and it says that on his grave. He was a friend of the whites. He really did everything he could to protect his people. He was a much more controversial figure at the time than he's remembered as now, which is how a lot of people in history are remembered. But yeah, some people view him as he kind of sold out his people, and other people say he knew that this coming of the white man was inevitable, and he did everything he could to protect his people from that coming. So, as far as the Duwamish people felt about filling in the river and straightening things out, the bigger concern would have been that within about 30 years of the white people getting here, all the trees in the area had been cut down, the salmon had been overfished, the sustainability was gone.
So there wasn't
they'd been pushed out, they'd been put onto reservations. It was
in the plains, there was just a lot more warring.
There was the treaty wars. And again, if you want to learn, there's a whole episode about Chief Seattle that deals a lot with that, with the treaty wars. The Battle of Seattle, which took place in 1856, January of 1856, I believe is when
November
that was.
30th, 1999, bro.
No, that's not the WTO.
That's Battle of Seattle, bro.
No, that's not. Okay, fine. Fair enough. Fair enough. Moving on. Anyway, so they filled in those the tide flats there, and by 1905 the mud had been pumped out, the area had been filled in, and 333 acres of land had been created. So basically everything south of Jackson Street, that's all artificial land. That's all, like, everything kind of to the west of the International District and south of about Jackson Street. That's the area that we're talking about down in there.
Are we screwed in an earthquake?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. All that dirt fill, all the whole Seattle waterfront, that's all fill land. Mm-hmm. Everything down there is all fill land. In the event of an earthquake, all of that fill dirt will essentially liquefy. Seattle will be torn in half, and everything west of I-5 is going to go into the water.
That really sounded biblical. I like that.
It's going to happen. It's hopefully not. They say within the next 50 years is when they're expecting it, but that's 50 years, give or minus, like 20,000 years in geological terms. So I'm not too concerned about it.
Is there an example of like a coastal fill dirt earthquake?
Let's see. Well, the 89 earthquake in San Francisco brought down their viaduct, which is exactly what will happen to our viaduct in the event of an earthquake. But I can't, I mean, I'm sure there was fill, but I'm not well versed enough in earthquake to landfill ratios to make a call on that, or to be able to bring up an example of
3.5 to 1.
Okay, that's what it is? Mm-hmm. Okay. Kilonewtons. Work on the South Canal project began November of 1901. So they actually started digging the hole through Beacon Hill, or digging the canal through Beacon Hill.
Oh, those guys won.
Well, we'll see. There's no canal there today, so if that's any indication. Workers used a hydraulic giant, which is an enormous water cannon that used high-powered water pressure to cut through the dirt at the bottom of Beacon Hill. Public opinion was not on the side of the project, and it was abandoned in 1904 to focus on a northern canal along the more logical portage route.
Is there evidence of this digging today?
Not that I know of. There might be. It wouldn't surprise me if there was, but I am not aware of it, and I didn't look for it in the research, but I didn't stumble across it either. Everything I was reading kind of went back to, let's focus on the actual spot for the canal. In 1906 arrived the man who would get the job done, and his name
was...
Do you know his name?
Sir Edmund Hillary.
Hiram M. Chittenden.
Hiram M. Chittenden Locks.
Hiram M. Chittenden.
That's a man who knows how to get stuff done.
Hell yeah. Chittenden spent most of his life working with the Army Corps of Engineers. Born in New York State and raised as a farm boy, he excelled in school, and at 16 was admitted to the Tenbroek Free Academy, a school for future teachers.
That's my boy.
Fuck yeah.
Hiram M. Chittenden.
He was granted a scholarship to Cornell University, where he studied for 2 terms before transferring to West motherfucking Point.
Yeah. Hiram M. Chittenden, getting shit done.
He graduated first in his class in discipline, third overall, and upon graduation, he became a second lieutenant in the Army Corps of Engineers.
Second lieutenant?
Yeah.
Can we change that?
He gets promoted, motherfucker.
I knew it!
Real quick. He married Nettie Parker, and they had 2 sons and a daughter. While in the Army Corps, he spent his free time reading law, and in 1887, he was admitted to the New York State Bar. He never practiced law, but later claimed it was helpful to know. He became a lawyer in his spare time, not because he wanted to practice law, he just thought the law was neat.
Damn.
So he became a fucking lawyer.
Chittenden getting shitting done.
Seriously. He worked largely with improving river navigation and had a preference for irrigation projects to open up arid regions to agriculture. He wrote an 1890 essay in the Magazine of American History, quote, "But the dwellers of the valley being periodically pacified by the paltry pittances from the public purse, the paramount problem of making the river build up that country and convert these arid and barren wastes into productive farmlands will go unsolved."
Is that consonants?
Alliteration. Mm-hmm. Alliteration.
What region was he talking about?
I don't know. I just thought it was a neat quote. Because he has a sense of humor. Oh.
And his alliteration is off the chain.
Fuck yeah, it is. Chittenden caught typhoid fever in 1890.
Ooh, from the shipworms.
Let me ask you this. Do you think you can keep Chittenden down?
No.
No, you cannot. He was given 6-month leave, which he took advantage of to take his wife to Europe. He's like, I've got typhoid, I need time off. They're like, yeah, take the time off. He's like, I'm going to Europe, bitches.
Motherfucker!
Upon his return, he was stationed for 2 years at Yellowstone National Park, America's first national park, where he spent 2 years overseeing 130 men building roads and fought efforts to build a railroad through the park.
Damn.
You think he's going to let a railroad go through one of our first national parks?
Hiram M. Chittenden is not going to get railroaded into that one.
Absolutely
Not.
not. If you think that's going to happen, you don't know Hiram
M.
Chittenden.
Chittenden.
He spent the next several years building canals around the country and was promoted to captain. Of course he was.
Skipped over first lieutenant.
Yeah. During his tenure in the Army Corps of Engineers, he also wrote several volumes of history, including the books The American Fur Trade in the Far West, History of Early Steamboat Navigation on the Missouri River, and Life, Letters, and Travels of Father Pierre-Jean de Smet, S.J., 1801 to 1873.
I think he kind of has the same status as Ben Franklin.
He is really a Renaissance man, jack of all trades, yeah. He is very, very prolific and just doing these really difficult things that would be, for other people, it would have been like their life's work. And they would have done it would have been the thing that they dedicated all their time and energy to. And he's just doing them in his spare time. Because he's just so, on it and intellectually curious and driven.
When you're on it and you're really in the zone doing the podcast, do you think you channel him a little bit?
I don't want to presume to say that, but I'd like to think so. I'd like to think so, yeah. He was diagnosed with nervous exhaustion. That I definitely channel. And he went to a sanatorium for a year. Upon his release, he was appointed to head of the Seattle District of the Corps of Engineers in 1906, with his jurisdiction covering Washington, Alaska, northern Idaho, and northwestern Montana. But the main focus was to, quote, be in charge of river and harbor works and fortifications of Puget Sound and tributary waters. A.K.A. the Canal Project.
Did he do did he have other?
He was in
Puget
charge.
Sound Locks
he was in
projects?
charge of everything, basically every waterway in the Northwest.
Did he build dams?
Yeah, I'm sure he would have built dams. I didn't find any of that in my research.
Can we assume that he built some
We can
dams?
assume he built some dams, yeah.
Grand Coulee? That was Chittenden.
No, that was later. That was a New Works project during the Great Depression.
Hoover Dam? That was Chittenden.
That would way too far south to be under his jurisdiction.
The St. Lawrence Seaway?
Not sure where that is, but...
Connects the Atlantic Ocean to the Great Lakes.
Yeah, sure.
Panama Canal?
Fuck yeah,
that was Chittenden.
Chittenden, yeah. Suez Canal,
Chittenden.
Erie Canal,
Chittenden.
Yeah, those canals on Mars they found, Chittenden. No, none of those were Chittenden.
The machine that Arnold Schwarzenegger uses to reinvigorate the Martian atmosphere in
Oh.
Total Recall,
Chittenden. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. He wrote in his journal Seattle was, quote, a crude and ugly place, but had a spirit that animates this rising community, surely a spirit of destiny. So, not a fan when he comes out here. But
Do you know the Washington State song?
No, I don't. Do you know what it is?
A little bit. There's a punk band that I was into in like 9th grade that did a cover version of it.
It was almost Louie Louie. I think it was Ross Schaefer, the comedian, tried to make the state song Louie Louie.
Why is that?
Because it became this whole... I actually just researched an episode. I haven't recorded it yet. But Louie Louie was the subject of an FBI investigation for indecency. They thought that they were saying crude and obscene things. It just kind of blew up. It was really popular, but it's the song that they play at the 7th inning stretch at Mariners games, and it was recorded by a Portland band, so it's weird that it would become the Washington State song. But it came close to becoming the official Washington State song. So what are the lyrics that you remember?
Washington, my home, wherever I may roam. You are my home, my native land. Washington, my home. That's all I remember.
I was not expecting you to burst forth with so much gusto so quickly, but yeah, cool. Okay, excellent. So is it called Washington, My Home? That makes sense. That sounds right. If I had you as a student in Washington State history class, I would give you an A.
Sweet.
Land developer James Moore, best known today as founder of the Moore Theater, offered to oversee the project of building the canal and a lock system to connect the lakes to the Sound for $500,000, and the county accepted his bid. Ultimate authority over what to do with the waterway fell into the jurisdiction of Chittenden, who upon reviewing Moore's plan felt the locks he was proposing would be inadequate. Do you think Chittenden's going to allow inadequate locks to go through that waterway?
Not for a fucking second.
No way. Chittenden created his own plan, which would involve building 2 sets of locks, one large and one small, at the entrance to the sound on the western end of Salmon Bay.
There's the Hiram Chittenden locks, and then there's the idiot locks.
Yeah,
for nerds.
The not locks. He planned on removing the locks from the canal connecting Lake Washington and Lake Union, and widening and deepening them out Lake Cut, which would lower the level of Lake Washington by several feet. The problem with this proposal was if the locks were located at the western end of Salmon Bay, it would rise the level of Salmon Bay, and many shingle mills would be flooded and have to be raised. Shingle mills.
Shingle mills.
Where they made Ballard used to be the shingle capital of America. Everett was also the shingle capital of America. They're big shingle towns.
Wow.
They made a lot of shingles there.
What's worse, that or shingles or shipworms?
Well, shingles are useful and they're a commodity, a product that you can sell. So I would say shipworms are worse. But yeah, both are. But yeah, I wouldn't want either myself. So Salmon Bay was a tidal inlet that went, where the Fremont Bridge is, and there's that little, it clearly looks like a man-made canal going through there. Yeah. That was Ross Creek that would gently go down into Salmon Bay, but Salmon Bay was at sea level. So what he's saying is that we build the locks where they are now, and Salmon Bay was about 20 feet lower than.
Where's Salmon Bay? I don't know.
Salmon Bay is, do you know Fisherman's Terminal? Do you know what right by the Ballard Bridge?
Chinooks is, right?
Yeah, right by the Ballard Bridge there. That used to be 20 feet lower. The level of the water there was 20 feet lower than it is today. So that was at the level, and it was a tidal inlet.
It used to be lower?
It used to be lower. Okay. It used to be 20 feet lower. So the tides would rise and fall there. So Ross Creek would drain out into that, and then that would all drain out. So he's proposing building the locks at the far end of Salmon Bay, which means that when you open up Lake Washington, all the water is going to dump into Lake Union, and Lake Union is going to overflow into Salmon Bay, but the locks are going to be there to keep the water from going out into Puget Sound.
I would imagine when Lake Washington loses a little water, Lake Union gains a fuckload of water.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened. Lake Union stayed pretty much where it was. It didn't lose much because it all kind of drained out, and then they were able to control the level through the locks of all of it. How many kilonewtons is that?
Of water?
Yeah.
6.02 times 10 to the 23rd.
Okay, that's a lot. That's Avogadro's kilonewton, isn't it? It is. 6.02 times 10 to the... Don't talk to me about moles, sir.
I will do what I choose.
I know enough about math.
This is my podcast now. Welcome to the Seattle Files with Ben Lidgus.
Okay, yeah, no, go ahead.
Welcome to 20 minutes of meditation and silence.
Learn me something about Seattle history, then, Mr.
Seattle history. I once saw a YouTube video of Nirvana's, the first time they ever played Smells Like Teen Spirit at the OK Hotel.
Okay.
It was crappy. The lyrics were different, but people went ape shit. I once, my friend...
I don't want to critique you too bad right now, but I don't normally start the stories with, I once read a book where...
I'm quoting my sources!
Okay.
That's how I roll. I have a friend, Bevan, who's a few years older than me. She was a bike messenger, in sort of, the grunge scene, and she was like, yeah, for a while, every party you went to, Nevermind would be on. And she was like, I knew a lot of people who did heroin. It was a real weird, depressed time.
Okay. All right.
I cede the podcast to you, Alan.
Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and take that back now.
Like Chittenden style.
Okay.
Take what you want.
Battles raged back and forth over the proposed project until eventually Moore withdrew his proposal, and Chittenden's plan is going to go through.
Moore is the Beacon Hill guy?
No. Moore is James Moore of the Moore Theater, who was a land developer who proposed his own lock system. June 1910, Congress passed a statute of up to $2.275 million to build a double lock at the Narrows of the western entrance to Salmon Bay.
How many dollars is that in moles?
How many dollars is that in moles? 2.2 times 10 to the 23rd. 0.00000002275 moles in dollars. 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. then
a million is like 10 to the 6th.
Yeah, this actually doesn't have a atomic weight. So
what, dollars don't have atomic weight?
They don't have a designated atomic weight.
I've discovered a new element called unobtainium.
Oh my god!
And that's
okay, moving on. So Chittenden at this point had retired from the Army Corps of Engineers by 1910, but his plan had been accepted in full, though he would not be involved in the construction. So his plan is going to go through, but he is not involved with it anymore. His health continued to fail him, and though he was in constant pain, he became the first president of the Port of Seattle Commission. Construction started on the locks and the canal in 1911. In June 1912, the Army Corps of Engineers hired Stillwell Brothers Construction Company to dig a larger cut between Lake Washington and Lake Union, 2,200 feet long, 100 feet wide, and 36 feet deep. It's big. That's a lot of dirt.
That's bigger than the one I know today.
That of the Mount Lake Cut?
Yeah.
That is the size of the one today.
Oh, so is the Mount Lake Cut where like there's a bridge you could jump off of?
Yes.
And there's like the UW does the kayaking through?
Yeah, that's the one.
Because that's not 100 feet wide.
You don't think that's 100 feet wide? I think it's about 100 feet wide.
Really?
I've kayaked through there many times, yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I've kayaked through there with, like, different boats passing each other, and, yeah, the UW, like, the crew team, they all, like, do graffiti there, and they write their mottos for the year or whatever. Yeah, that's the Mount Lake Cut.
All right, I cede to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So, a dam was built at the western of the canal to keep the water back until the locks were completed. Crews dredged 245,000 cubic yards of sediment to create a lock pit. They began pouring concrete in 1913, and most of the structure was in place by the following year. The lock gates were built to allow vessels in and out for the water to be raised and lowered. The tallest of the doors were 55 feet high and weighed 480,000 pounds.
Did they inspire the doors of Mordor?
They did not.
Okay.
The workers. I don't have a clever thing to say about that. Maybe they did. I don't know. I don't know if old JRR ever came out this way.
If he knew what's good for him.
Yeah, he would have come on out and said, "Oh, doors." That's, I assume, what he sounded like. We'll never know.
Doors!
The workers built 2 sets of locks and a fish ladder for spawning salmon. Lake Washington was 29 feet above sea level and Lake Union 20 feet above sea level. On July 12th, 1916, the locks were completed and they closed their gates. Salmon Bay was no longer a tidal inlet but would fill with fresh water. On July 12th, 1916, workers at the dam on Mont Lake Cut used shovels to open the streams and let water from higher Lake Washington drain into Lake Union. Soon water was gushing uncontrollably as the dam disintegrated. There is an incredible image of this. I'm sure you can find it online. It's at the Mohai Collections. And at Mohai, there is a full wall-size mural of this image. Of basically, there's a giant like wall of dirt, and they've just broken through, and the water is just gushing through. So many kilonewtons of pressure coming through. So many kilonewtons of water. Moles and moles of water coming through. Yeah. But yeah, it's a really incredible sight. But water is just tearing through.
Pie moles.
Yeah. The water in Lake Washington dropped 2 feet in the first week and 4 feet in the first month, then steadily dropped at 2 inches a day. By October, Lake Washington was 9 feet lower, the same level as Lake Union, and Salmon Bay had risen 20 feet from sea level. Oof. The surface area of Lake Washington was reduced by 2 miles.
I bet Bill Gates was mad.
Why?
Because then when Lake Washington goes down, he no longer has waterfront property.
You still do. The shoreline was cut by 10 miles, and those who owned lakefront property saw their land area increase to the new level of the water. So they got more land now. They got more waterfront land.
Okay.
So Bill was probably doing all right. Where was I? The surface area of Lake Washington was reduced by 2 miles, the shoreline cut by 10 miles, and 2 islands now connected to the shore. So there used to be an island, I believe it was Seward Park that used to be an island. Oh. And then when the water level dropped, it now connects to the shore.
Oh, cool.
More than 1,300 acres of new land appeared around the lake. 1,300 acres of land. Crazy. Small vessels began moving through the Mountain Lake Cut, and shortly after, larger vessels started using the locks. Salmon Bay Terminal, which was later renamed Fisherman's Terminal, reported 5,000 boats passed through the locks since they opened the boat traffic in the first few months.
Damn.
More than 50,000 people attended.
What are they doing?
Sorry?
Is there like are they like, finally we can bring fish to people, or are they people just partying, or like is there some industry that it's like was ready to go when this happened?
The shipping industry and the fishing industry, because now they can bring their boats into fresh water. They don't have to worry about shipworm. They have these calm waters that they can, the shingle mills would have been raised, so the shingle mills are still there.
Okay.
But they now have a nice calm port. They have a freshwater port. And so they're able to come in and actually store their boats there and unload and load and unload. So yeah, shipping and fishing. So more than 50,000 people attended the first official grand opening on July 4th, 1917, 63 years to the day after Thomas Mercer first proposed the connection. Got it done eventually. The Seattle Times said of the event, quote, "Every thinking person on the whole canal right-of-way realized in full that here, completed, ready for use, actually in use, was the thing that will do more toward bringing Seattle its destined million inhabitants and undisputed Pacific Coast supremacy than any other factor the city has ever known or is likely to know in the present generation."
And I would say we are widely regarded as having Pacific Coast supremacy.
Yeah. You think so? Seattle.
Then Portland.
San Francisco. Los Angeles.
Then LA. Then
San Diego.
Tacoma.
Okay.
Then San Diego.
Okay.
Then Bellingham.
Okay.
Then the Bay.
All right. So
Undisputed Kings.
Okay. Undisputed Kings.
Boom!
Yeah.
How we doing it? Chittenden style.
Hiram Chittenden was too ill to attend the ceremony. Yeah, he watched from his porch on Capitol Hill, looking down on the parade of boats in Lake Union, ready to pass through the locks. He was
staying home, channeling the yet-to-be-born Chris Allen.
He could be heard whispering, "It is done. It is done." He died 3 months later, at age 58.
Wow.
Yeah. On November 19th, 1956, the locks were renamed the Hiram M. Chittenden Locks at a ceremony attended by Chittenden's children. And that's the story of the Ballard Locks.
Damn.
That's how we got them. That's how they're there. And
my uncle would always wanted to take my relatives there when they came in from out of town, and I thought it was really boring.
Oh, okay. Cool. Not a ringing endorsement from Ben on visiting the locks.
I did it once as an adult, and I was like, "This is cool."
September is a pretty good time because that's when the salmon are running. If you go down there most of the times of the year, down to the salmon ladders, you're just going to see a bunch of water. I was passing over to the locks, riding my bike out to Ballard a couple weeks ago, and everybody was all excited because apparently the ship from Deadliest Catch was going through, and I was not. I think it's the Northwestern, something like that, and I had no idea that was the ship or. So somebody ran up and like, "The Northwestern's going through the locks." I was like,
"Boom!
Oh, yeah, okay, cool. I'm happy. You're happy."
What are the odds that just for this one episode, the outro music is going to be "Washington, My Home," the cover by Sicko?
Probably not great because iTunes likes to flag stuff that's copyrighted. We'll see if we can sneak it by. We'll see what happens.
But I imagine if you used it, like, that'd probably be in the news, and then this podcast would go viral.
Oh, you think so?
If you had copyrighted material, that's a Chittenden move right there.
Well, then you know my weak spot, telling me to play a Chittenden move. Well, thank you for listening to the Seattle Files. Thank you so much, Ben, for being here.
Thank you for having me, Chris Allen.
If you have a topic suggestion you'd like to hear an episode about, shoot me an email at theseattlefiles@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook, subscribe and rate in iTunes. To become a supporter of the Seattle Files, go to patreon.com/theseattlefiles. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next Tuesday with a new topic.